Now, Hastings would have known, you know, he's not stupid. Someone told him to shut up about this building here and must have really laid into him and threatened him. Because he obviously didn't tell the murder squad that Simon Williams had been here. So either that material was removed from the records or whatever. Also, New Haven CID, Bacon, Bates and Witherspoon would have known from the information they had that Simon Williams had been at this flat upstairs for some considerable time. Now, here comes some of the confusing bits. Within the area. I decided not to leave New Haven alone, so I phoned up another inspector, and next thing I know is I've got Simon Bates on the phone being really irate, saying, "You've been onto my governor, there's nothing we can do, we're doing all we can, perhaps we ought to come round and investigate you." Anyway, it's all on tape and it's all been put in front of me. I want to turn up here shortly, if they're still looking for Simon Williams, etc. So, I gave it nearly a week, and I phoned into the incident room, and I said, "This guy you're looking for," I said, "is his car registration number, blah blah blah." And anyway, after it, and while Scotch guy came on the phone and said yes, I said, he said, "Well, you know, sort of who are you, and this, that and the other." Anyway, you know, I said, "Well, is that the car number you're looking for?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Well, have you found the murder weapon yet?" And no. And I said, "Did you know he was in Peacehaven?" He said, "No." Anyway, basically within quarter of an hour, DS O'Donnell and DC Pollard were over. I explained to them the particular actions on the day, of how I saw him go and sit by the drain and then go back and sit by the drain again. And search team turned up, and they were a pretty decent bunch of guys, and hey presto, they found the knife. So I gave a statement over what's seen. I also, on that, did another statement which concerned a bag I saw Simon Williams carrying across the road, sort of a canvas holdall thing. And then basically a few days later, Pollard came back and I had to do another statement, this is the one that seems to be missing, concerning a description of Danny Smith. Well, it was obvious for identity purposes, seeing he wasn't Danny Smith, to make sure he was the same. Anyway, all amongst this, our friends, why didn't the murder squad, seeing I'm an important witness, come down and say, "Are you worried? Have you been intimidated?" Etc, etc, etc. Those two police officers never mentioned one question about was I frightened, was I worried because Slade's gang was upstairs, and there again, other information police complaints, disciplinary complaints, Inspector Carol Popel. They are allegations of corruption, intimidating a witness, and covering up the fraud of Mark Lucian Slade. Now there are another set that justice is done. One, that the corruption on the police side is sorted out. Whoever killed KATRINA Taylor and whoever was in charge of it, and I still have a sneaking suspicion that Slade is somewhere well involved within that area of the murder. One other very, very important thing that has come to light, and we haven't been able to prove it 100%, but it appears that the police never checked any telephone call that went out from the flat upstairs. Obviously, BT keep records of all outgoing calls and numbers they went to. Also, Mr Slade has a mobile. He also has a paging service. And it'll be interesting to see where all those numbers led to, where the four accused were at the time, what calls were made from here, what calls were made into Mr Slade's paging service, what calls were made on his mobile, and how everybody was all over the period of that murder. 10 years ago, this property was bought by a company called Winton Investments. Basically, they tried all the standard harass to get us out of the routine, but unlike Mr Hootstraten and all the standard harass style, Mr Hootstraten to frighten you out the door, this crowd didn't. It was in fact almost, well, I still maintain it was attempted murder or to injure Mr Cox when they drove a car on a pavement out in this gang one night. The council covered up all the harassment and they covered up all the criminal offences, and they tried their utmost to make us look bad. But we decided we weren't going to move. So the building had been damaged by the hurricanes, they had to do some repairs. But they never took anybody to court. Now, bearing in mind at that time, Winton had broken every bloody law in the book, and they had to have, by law, if you're an offshore company, you have to have an agent on the UK mainland on who you may serve notice. They didn't have one. The building could have been confiscated at that early stage by the council and basically sold to the tenants. But as it started, Mr Tagg was offered a job in Nottingham and he moved out, and he tried for 10 years to sell, but some strange things happened to Mr Tagg. He never kept in touch. He had a roofer come along but take the roof off. The roof was off for 3 months. The amount of damage that was done, and environmental health stood there with their hands in their pockets watching the place getting washed away, and we still didn't move. So they came along and they had to repair the building. Now the point is, Mr Tagg's lease, he had to be insured for all risks. They had no problems at all taking Mr Tagg to court saying, right, old son, it's your problem, your lease says that you should have a building insured against all damages, you flooded up downstairs, pay up. No, the only people that get threatened when we start creating is to take me to court. We have there again tape proof that councillors were lied to. Also during that period, Mr Oldfield got caught buying up houses and a few other little dirty dealings. So he disappeared off the council. Mr Mann had a carefully planned heart attack and he left. And the council was then replaced with the head of it, Norman Baker, John Crawford, and also Catherine Knight. Ralph Harris was a solicitor, was already there, and Woosnam, he retired. Well, Woosnam was a totally bent solicitor who couldn't, if no way at all could he stand up in court and get away with the pack of lies they sent out to everybody in sight. I eventually, unfortunately, after a real long drag out, got to court. Winton's didn't appear in any shape or form. I was awarded an injunction and I was awarded damages. And the first reply I got from nice Mr Harris was when I said, right, that's it. He says, the judge doesn't know what he's bloody talking about. I thought, well, I'd love to see you in court and say that to the judge. It's definitely one of Peacehaven's landfills. The documents mostly are missing. All we think, and the interesting thing is with Holmes and Winton Investments, is the extremes they went to not actually be identified. Now, I'll give you an instance. The car that was driven on the pavement of Mr Cox turned out it had a nothing number plate on it. It was I think A56 JGU, I think. And it turned out the number was taken off of that car and put onto an old Bedford van as a cherished number, and the BMW was then issued with a new number plate. In other words, you couldn't trace who owned that vehicle at the time. It was things like that that show whoever was behind it all really didn't want to be discovered to who the hell they were. James Holmes also had a series of names. Let me see. Oh God. Della Harp. Can't think off the top of my head, we got the list anyway. But he had a series of different names he used. Apparently he is in America, in San Francisco now, with £100,000, which he stole from some gangster in London on some dodgy land deal. Jack Straw, written to Tony Blair asking him for the Regional Crime Squad to investigate. Also, we've written to the judge asking him to stop the case, and the Crown Prosecution Service, and I'm determined there will be a proper investigation. There's one other thing I will mention, that visit by Whitfield. One question he asked was he wanted to know where all the material was. Well, when we told him it was copied and stored away with various people in London and interested parties, his face dropped a little bit. So I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned, the police have done nothing last year but try their best to intimidate me, even to get me to have a stage of a nervous breakdown. Slade's going to try and beat me up, and I'm bearing in mind I am basically, this eye here has a broken, very bad condition retina, which only needs a punch in it to blind me. This side here I'm already blinded in. I'm not exactly the bully boy that's running around against a bunch of thugs. And of course, people want me shut up, and I will if I have to, or feel I'm being attacked or threatened. I will protect myself in any way I can and how. The police haven't done the job, and seeing the girl was murdered for a burglary, and she must have been kept somewhere, she must have been tortured. before a frenzied stabbing attack, so it says in the paper. No, it's not normal. It's not, doesn't make sense. And also, you don't